All right, welcome back from your activity. So next I'd like to talk about the Paschal Mystery. If you remember, the Paschal Mystery is one of our vocabulary words, and it means the suffering, death, resurrection, and ascension of Jesus into heaven. All a bunch of our vocabulary words also. So first I'd like to start out by talking about what Jesus went through leading up to his crucifixion. The first, we begin with Jesus and his 12 apostles meeting in a room to celebrate the Passover meal. It's at this time where Jesus is telling them many things to sort of prepare them for what's about to happen. They don't really know exactly what's going to happen, but Jesus is acting different to them, and so he's trying to prepare. It's also at this time, or very importantly, he first holds up the bread and says, "This is my body," and holds up the wine and says, "This is my blood," and do this in memory of me. And you'll recognize those words from church when the priest consecrates the bread and the wine and it becomes the body and blood of Christ. So this is a very, very important part of our faith at this time during the Last Supper. So after the Last Supper, Jesus and his disciples go to a garden in Jerusalem. While they're there, Jesus is praying, but they're approached by soldiers that were led there by Judas, one of Jesus's 12 apostles, who betrayed Jesus for 20 pieces of silver. So he led the soldiers to him. They arrested Jesus, and they took Jesus to be before Pontius Pilate. You might remember Pontius Pilate was mentioned in one of the um, one of the Stations of the Cross. I'm sorry, I lost my word. But while he was in front of Pontius Pilate asked him a lot of questions, and Pontius Pilate realized Jesus really wasn't guilty of what they said he was guilty of. But they insisted, the leaders that didn't like Jesus, that he was evil and he needed to be put to death. So Pontius Pilate washes his hands and says, "I am free of this man's death. Do with him as you will." Basically, lets the leaders in the Jewish church crucify Jesus. So then, during Jesus's carrying of the cross, Jesus has been beaten. He's being ridiculed. He's being treated terribly, and he's taken his cross up to the top of Mount Calvary. It's there where they pound the nails into his hands. They hang him from the cross, and Jesus says, after all that, Jesus asks his Father to forgive the soldiers, to forgive those Jewish leaders who didn't like Jesus and had him put to death, to forgive them. He said, "For they know not what they do." So it's amazing, but obviously we tell you to forgive and forgive and forgive again, and we get that example from Jesus. If your brother or sister hits you, or someone at school is mean to you, and we tell you to forgive them even though it's difficult, just remember what Jesus forgave in suffering what he suffered. So again, it's at that time where he says, "Father, I give myself to you," and then Jesus dies. So if after Jesus died, we call that the sacrifice, which, remember, that's another of our vocabulary words, which means to give something that we value to God out of love. And of course, that's what Jesus did for God the Father, was he gave his life for him. The next word we learn about is the crucifixion. Now, the crucifixion, remember, is Jesus being nailed to the cross and hung from the cross. So that's what crucifixion means. So after Jesus died, a man named Joseph of Arimathea asked permission to take Jesus down off the cross and to bury him in a family tomb. So he takes Jesus down, he buries him. They roll a stone in front of the tomb, And remember, tomb is another of our vocabulary words, which means a cave or somewhere safe for a body to be buried. So that's where Jesus was left, and he, as we know, he remained there until his resurrection on Easter Sunday, as we celebrate. On the third day, Jesus rose from the dead. And we're going to watch a video of that resurrection. So just enjoy the video.